Welcome to Multifamily Grit, where we bring in the experts to share their stories of the celebrations and struggles of one of the most important industries in the U.S., multifamily property management. I'm joined today by Angie Hug, Executive Vice President of Property Management at Pivotal Housing Partners, an affordable housing developer and management company overseeing 143 communities and nearly 10,000 apartment homes across 16 states. With more than 30 years in the multifamily industry, Angie leads a team of over 300 professionals, focusing on developing people, strengthening operations, and creating opportunities for team members to build meaningful and lasting careers. Angie's story is rooted in service, leadership, and a passion for making a difference. After graduating from Purdue University and beginning her career in the restaurant industry, she found her way into multifamily housing and never looked back. Throughout her career, she has remained committed to empowering teams, driving operational excellence, and creating housing communities that positively impact residents' lives. Her leadership philosophy centers on helping people maximize their potential while balancing customer satisfaction, financial performance, and long-term asset preservation. Today, we dive into Angie's perspective on the unique challenges and opportunities facing affordable housing. From balancing economic occupancy with building strong resident communities, to navigating centralization, workforce shortages, and the growing complexity of compliance, Angie shares lessons learned from decades in the industry. We'll explore why some functions are ideal for centralization while others require a personal touch, how affordable housing offers incredible career growth opportunities, and why maintaining strong relationships with residents remains at the heart of successful property management. This is a conversation for anyone passionate about leadership, affordable housing, and building communities that truly make an impact. Before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Fortress, the only core property management operating system built with an emphasis for affordable owners and operators. Fortress revolutionizes affordable management with features focused on automating housing assistance charges and payments to keep ledgers clean and accurate, centralizing file reviews and document storage through Fortress and AWS, and a free in-system smart waitlist to ensure your property stays in compliance. And don't forget, if you like what you hear today, please like, subscribe, and share with someone you think would enjoy this episode. Now let's get into it. Here's Kerri Davis sitting down with Angie Hug for a conversation about growth, leadership, and what it takes to thrive in an ever-changing affordable housing landscape.
Angie, thank you so much for being here on the podcast with me. I'm honestly, I've told you this before, but I'm so excited for this time together, and I am honored that you are here with me today.
Thank you, Kerri. I am honored that you invited me, and I'm looking forward to the conversation too. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, before we dig into what I know is going to be a really fun and just amazingly full of amazing energy conversation, I am so excited to hear, as I'm sure our listeners, how you got your start in the multifamily industry.
So probably like a lot of those listening, I did not graduate from high school thinking that I would be a community manager someday and get in the apartment industry.
Yeah.
I went to school for restaurant management and culinary arts. So thought that that's where my career would go. And while living in an apartment community, a couple years into opening up new restaurants, that was my first job out of college. I moved every 90 days and hired the team, including the managers, and we stayed about 90 days and we would go and do it someplace else. The community manager at the apartments I lived at came to me and said, "Hey, we have a leasing position open and you're always on the road. And our hours are a lot better than the apartment or the restaurant industry. Have you ever considered the apartment industry?" And I'm like, "Oh, no. I love culinary. I love restaurants." And they asked what I loved about it. And I said, "Your customer base changes. There's always somebody to train and develop. It's hard to make." It was Cracker Barrels, so we had thin margins.
Right.
Like, it's hard to make $1. And I love that. And they're like, "Well, great. You'd be perfect for the apartment industry. It's a lot of the similarities. You just see people for 12 months or longer instead of, a Cracker Barrel's case, 12 minutes or longer." So I became their leasing agent and cleaned apartments I worked weekends, so cleaned apartments during the week. So got to learn what it was like to clean an apartment and also to lease and worked my way up through the years, and here I am 30 years later, and I'm so glad I found the industry when I did. I love it.
Oh, that's such a cool story. And I've always had a bit of a, like, not a bit actually. I've had like a mad amount of respect for the restaurant industry. Like, right, we all take advantage of them. We all love going to restaurants and eating out and bringing food home. But like to think about the people who work there, who work, a lot of them work like nights and weekends, and those are like hard shifts on your feet, like the intensity, the art and science of it all. I've always had like this mad respect. So my husband and I have like, we cook a lot. And so we've off and on like talked about like, oh, how fun would it be to like start our own business and run a restaurant? And then we like think about it and we're like, oh, practically we can't do that like as humans. But I have this mad amount of respect for it. Is there anything about the culinary industry or your time in being in the restaurant industry that you miss?
The rush. But if I was still an on-site community manager, I would have the rush. And when you hit the executive level, right, the rushes we get are a little different at this level. But there's something about, that hype. Now, when we go out to eat, they say, where do you want to sit? And I still say, whatever server station is next. Like, I still look in the little packets of sweet and low to make sure they cleaned it out. Like, I drive my husband and family nuts.
Love it.
At Cracker Barrel, I can still order based on their numbers because I still have their entire menu memorized, which is really bad, other than their new things that have come about in the last couple of years. But yeah, it's that rush, and you get it in the apartment industry. It's just different. But and I still do love to cook, and I love to bake. So the nice thing is I still get to do all those things. Just don't have a bottom line attached to it any longer, which is also nice. So.
Yeah, and not as many nights and weekends. Not that there's never an emergency in multifamily, but
yeah, but definitely not, right? I mean, it's much different. A lot of respect for the servers and the cooks and the bussers and the managers and the leaders that make it all happen. So
yeah, I know.
Some of the best managers I've ever had were servers in restaurants. I still carry little cards around. And if I have a great server, I ask them if they've ever considered the apartment industry. And I am a fan of affordable housing. Market rate is good. Affordable housing is great. So I do every opportunity I can to tell the servers about LIHTC. Don't necessarily know if they go to that career, field or not. But every chance I get, I try to steal them away.
I love that. I'm so similar to you in that way that like I have so much respect. Like a well-run restaurant to me is like I could sit there and talk about it and like the business. So like there's a oh my gosh, I always say it wrong. I always call it Texas Longhorn, and my husband's like, that's two different restaurants. It's a Texas Roadhouse, I think is what Texas it is.
Roadhouse. Okay. Yep.
It's like you're a goober. Anyway, so there's a Texas Roadhouse in our town that is they have like all the plaques all over the walls where like they win for like the restaurant of the year like all the time for all the Texas Roadhouses. And so like every time we go in there, I want to talk business. I'm like, do you see the way that they are like managing, how they manage the busing of the table? Like if you just watch a table and like how quickly it changes out and like all these things, my husband's like, would you just stop and enjoy your dinner? No, all right, business, Kerri. The economics.
You and I need to go out to eat together.
I'm so bad. I'm so ridiculous. But yes, I have so much respect for that industry. And I do. I think there are a lot of ways you can tie it back to what we do as well. But I actually want to hone in a little bit on something that you said, because I agree with you completely that there's like a rush and a hype that you experience on the site level versus what we experience in like the corporate scene. But let me ask, like, what was that for you when you were on site and you were managing or leasing? What was the rush and the hype for you?
When that resident got their keys and just that experience, and in affordable housing, like for some of the residents, this is their first time to truly have a home that's theirs. And that rush of, sometimes 90 plus pieces of paper that they've got to work through, and the bank statements and all the things the market rate world doesn't have to provide. And sometimes their resources are limited to get it. So you work alongside them and you know their story while also balancing the business side because you got to get them moved in fast. Yeah. And when all of those pieces come together and the apartment gets turned within budget, right? So then that work, I mean, from the financial side, you've got that piece of it too. And they sign their lease, they pay their move-in money, you show them their apartment home, either typically for the first time because the turns are so fast, and you tell them welcome home. Like that is the best. That is the best rush. And then you compound that piece of it. That's the day-to-day side. As a leader, the rushes are different. But when I was on site, and then when I was also cleaning, you'll probably learn this about me through your conversation. I like to make sure things are done correctly. And sometimes early in my career, that meant I did it. So when our community manager, when I was the leasing agent, couldn't find a cleaner, I'm like, I don't work on Tuesdays. I'll be our cleaner. And then I'll clean nights after work because I was the one that was responsible when they moved in. Yeah. Right. So I learned over time you can't do everything. But as an early team member in this apartment world, you try to do it all until you realize that's not the best for anybody. So that was doubly rewarding because I knew those baseboards, I knew those cold air returns, I knew that little seat in the refrigerator. All those things looked exactly like they needed to look. And you also know how much work is put into that. So when you have that, especially in the affordable housing, a lot of times a cleaner is your maintenance person. Yeah. And you know how hard they have to work to get that apartment to look. So I think there's a different level of respect too, that today creates a different kind of rush. When I walk a vacant, especially when they don't know I'm coming, and man, you could eat off the floor or all the different sayings. There's just something about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Now I've got like 15 more questions I could ask you. That's so, I feel like, yes, I just love talking to you because I feel like you share so much wisdom in so many little small statements. Okay, so I really want to go back to before I move too far away from it, because this is something you are so passionate about. And I also love this so much that I want to say it again for our listeners. Carrying around business cards to hand out when you receive exceptional service, wherever that is. Like, I mean, honestly, even if that's like at the checkout line at Walmart or Kroger or at a restaurant or when you're at Nordstrom shopping or wherever it is, but like carrying around business cards to help recruit is just one of my favorite strategies for hiring and bringing more talent into the multifamily industry. I used to have a really phenomenal team member. Her name was Jillian. This was years ago. But Jillian and I, when we were staffing up, we were growing the property management company together. We would go to the local outlet mall, and we would go through like the Michael Kors outlet stores and the like Under Armour outlet store, and we'd like chat with people, and we'd hand out business cards trying to hire people away from retail. So I love that strategy. I think it's absolutely brilliant. But you are also so passionate about the fact that property management is a phenomenal career, especially in affordable, but that it's not something that's really widely known. In fact, you started by saying, like almost everyone will say, when they start to tell their story of how they got into multifamily, they fell into it. They had no idea. It wasn't something they were seeking out. So I really want to like dig into that more with you about like your passion around that and how we as an industry go about fixing that.
Yeah. So a little more on my story. I started with market rate, and I knew there was HUD housing, but I knew nothing about LIHTC. I'd never heard of it before. I'd never heard of Section 42, right? LIHTC, whichever word it. And I, a good double digits into my career, I just kind of heard about it on the side of like, well, have you heard about this housing that's for people that make 60% of the area median income? And I'm like, and I like to learn new things. So I was told to read, and I love to read, but I was told to read the Guerrilla Guide to Affordable Housing. And it was complicated and it was fun, but also there were a lot of career opportunities in affordable housing that were so different than market rate housing. And I think some of it is getting word out there that when we hear affordable, to truly understand this is for the people that work in the restaurant industry. Sometimes police officers, teachers, school bus drivers, like, this is what LIHTC housing is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I don't think we have enough conversations, whether that's in the high schools, whether that's in the colleges, because there are some universities now that have real estate programs, but they're so focused on the market rate side.
Yeah.
Like, how do we as leaders in the industry get into these universities? And whether that's we offer clubs, or we have conversations, or we have affordable based interns, or we donate our time to teach a little bit about LIHTC. Because LIHTC is a hand up.
Yeah.
And when you think about what that means, like, over the years, people have moved out to buy houses in LIHTC, in Section 42 housing, at a pretty good clip. I didn't look up the stat. I probably should have. But, like, you don't think about that with affordable housing, of you keep the rents affordable to the resident, not based on their income, but based on the area median income. And maybe they could put a little bit away, or I think if we told more stories even about stability of housing for kids and those reading levels of children, and how having that same bed to come home to every single night, year over year, and staying in that same school, what that does for communities. I think if we could get that out more. One thing I love about the younger generations is, it's not that the older generations were all about this, but it's typically not about the title, and the roles for the younger generation need a purpose. And that is exactly what affordable housing is. It's a career with a purpose. My hashtag a lot of times on LinkedIn is housing with a greater purpose. And I truly think that's what LIHTC housing, affordable housing is. So just don't think we do a good job of voicing it enough, or getting the feel good stories out there in the news that you'd hope people would grab onto and read and really understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so well said, that we need to, I truly stand by this, that there is a large portion of our population that is extremely service based. In fact, I would argue that more of us as humans are service based than we even realize. But it's like, it goes to the adage of, like, a lot of times if you have a teacher, you'll see that they're married to a police officer or a nurse, or so. But, like, it's like just service-based humans. There are so many of them, but I don't think that we always realize, like, what the services are that are out there that are available outside of, like, the norm. And what's really, I think, beautiful about affordable housing is that I have seen a lot of people without college degrees get into affordable housing and create incredibly successful careers for themselves. Like, I mean, honestly, the things that you need to know about, like, business or even financials when it comes to affordable housing, they tend to be very industry specific anyway. And so it's not that college won't help, but do you have to have it? Absolutely not. And so I think that it is such a beautiful career path that is also very purpose driven and service based, that I couldn't agree with you more. I just wish more people knew about, and also knew that they didn't have to rack up all the debt that you have to rack up in order to become a teacher or a nurse or those sorts of things. And so I think it's so highly advantageous and rewarding. But yeah, how do we get it out there more?
Yeah, I think we need to give our leaders room to have conversations, and to network with others, to give back and to have those conversations in the high schools, or even in the alternative schools or the trade schools that are out there. I think for the maintenance side of things also.
Yeah.
When there are some people that are just really good with their hands, and you can build a great career. And yeah, maybe you do have to start out as a porter and become a make-ready tech while you learn some basic skills, and then you can become a tech level 1 when you learn a few more, and then get your EPA, and eventually know how to install HVACs. But how many careers can do that without you becoming an apprentice of something in the electrical, field or plumbing or something like that. You can build that career out right away. I think too, with affordable housing, that's different than market rate, especially the 9% tax credits, because the communities are intentionally smaller.
Yeah.
You can start out small, and maybe it's not a multi-layer community when you're just starting out, but that career you can build, you can become a multi-site manager, and then it's easier to kind of create these tiny little hubs. Like we've created district managers that kind of have 1 foot in the manager role while tasting the area manager role to see, is this something I want? Because some managers find they want to stay a community manager, which is beautiful because you've got those residents 15 plus years in your apartment homes anyway. So, and they are still that community manager, so they can step back. You can't do that in the market rate world, right? I mean, the promotion happens and your job's been filled. So, yeah, there's just so much growth opportunity. And that point that you make about college degrees, that is such a good point too. You start that career early, started at 18, and think about where you could be by the age of 30 with no college debt.
With no debt. Yeah. Yeah. I honestly I graduated college. My husband did not. And like we have this battle going in our house with my 15-year-old, and it's like, I don't care if he goes to college. And my husband's like, oh no, he has to go to college. And I'm like, I don't like, I think you can be super successful without. Like, it really just depends on what he wants to do. And to your point, he loves working with his hands. So he's like obsessed with his engineering classes in high school right now, like like physical engineering, not like coding. Yeah. And I'm like, college is insanely expensive these days. Like the first 2 years of it are like high school 2.0. It's like a big, free for all party. And I'm like, I don't know that I see the value there. And so when I have this conversation with you, I like really mean it on a personal level, that I don't think that you have to go to college. Like at Fortress, I could care less whether anyone I hire in any level of my team has a college degree. I just don't care. I think that it's more about your experiences as a person, your drive, your passion, like who you are, like culturally who you are and how you fit in with our team. That's like way more important. So I'm a big fan of like thinking more critically about like how you gain the skills to do what it is that you want to do in life.
Yeah, that culture comment you just made, that is so true. And the great thing, affordable housing, for profit or non-profit, I worked for both, right? You can find that culture that fits and still be in affordable housing, because there are so many different focuses on that side of it. But yeah, your son loving to work with his hands. It's like almost, I hate to use stats, but I know it's over 2 million, but I don't think it's 3 million hands-on positions that open a year. That will continue to, I think about half of them are the shortage. Now, somebody fact check me on that one, because I'm probably a little bit off on the stats, but I do know it's over 2 million. I just don't know how much over. Yeah. So that's a great point. Think about that career they can build.
And how satisfying it is to like accomplish something physically every day. Like there are days where I feel like I just get stuck in my computer and in my schedule, like my schedule just like drives my day and my meetings and all the meetings. And then like I look back and I'm like, what did I do today? But like if you're working with your hands, then like you've created something. I think there's something beautiful about that. Speaking of that though, I do want to touch on something. I've got so many topics for you. But I do want to touch on something that you brought up that I think was so important, something that you guys are struggling with heavily, which is like maintenance and finding and having enough maintenance technicians. Tell me a little bit more about that struggle for you guys and how you're trying to solve it.
Well, trying to move the magic wand, and that one hasn't worked. So
yeah.
I think you've got to get creative with a couple things. I'll call it second careers. Some of our strongest maintenance techs right now are retired from other careers and want to keep using their hands. They are so creative. Mm-hmm. They know how to fix something. They know how to have a conversation. I mean, they have a whole life of experience to talk to the residents, whether that's our senior communities or our multifamily. They've got enough life behind them that when someone might walk in really frustrated, they hear it differently because a lot of them have been through some of the toughest years. When you're talking about somebody that's in their 60s or 70s, so life experience is different. So we have opened up our eyes to being a little more understanding if technology is a little tougher for maintenance. We know that most residents like to put their work orders in through a mobile app, and sometimes it's preferred for maintenance to be able to just look at their phone and know that priority. And it helps with things like fair housing and that we don't accidentally go out of order on something. But if we need to help a little more or think a little differently, because that flip phone just won't quite work, but man, they've got the skill set, and they've got the character that's needed. So that's one way, especially in our rural towns, that we've been able to. And while simplification is kind of where the industry is going with job descriptions and roles and things, because technology likes things a little simpler, we've decided to get more complicated and have a true career path for maintenance. So like I brought up earlier, you might start typically a tech level 1, but you might start as a grounds tech. We actually have one team member who did, and he wants to learn more. So he has a development plan to get the tools that he needs and to shadow some maintenance team members and to be able to hit that next level. But it's very concrete. And to be a level 1, this is your skill set. To be a level 2, this is. Now, you might be hired in as a level 2, but for levels 3 and higher, it's also a cultural fit. Okay. So you've got to be with this for a while, because culture is equally important. We say for us, it's profit and purpose, that it's not one or the other. It's got to be both. They both matter. Yeah. And they matter equally on that teeter-totter. So those are things that we've tried that we are hoping will be successful. We do a lot of check-ins with our maintenance team also, and they're honest, and we love that. Like, transparency is important for us. Yeah. In 25, we heard consistently that we are not transparent enough, and we are really good at focusing on the gap, but we're not always so good at focusing on the praise. So we started these monthly, we call them pivotal power plays, but we started these monthly meetings that are 15 minutes or less, depends on how fast Angie can talk. And all it is 15 minutes of praise, like who's either gone above and beyond. So sometimes it's metrics, but sometimes it's culture. And then there are our year-to-date metrics that we're measuring, and who hit them this month, but then also who's hit them for the entire year. And then we have some end-of-year price things that I can't share today because nobody knows. They're kind of kept in our back pocket. But then we do gift card drawings. If your name was added, if said at any point in this 15 to 20 minutes, then you're added into these fun drawings as well. So we're hoping, and we truly do appreciate, and we love to celebrate those wins. And we're hoping culturally that'll also help us make our turnover differently. I mean, the manager showing up is huge. Like, we've got to make sure we have good leaders and managers for our maintenance teams, but also just saying thank you and shouting out their successes, the little successes that create the big wins. That's something else that we started doing January of 26. So
I love that so much. We started something actually, I think, maybe 2 years ago at Fortress, and we have maybe 3. We have a Slack channel that's called We Are Effing Awesome. We like to play with our Fortress F. And so it's called We Are Effing Awesome. And any team member can give any other team member a shout out in there. And there's like a structure to it. And then at the end of the month, we take all the names that were for the people who were shouted out, and then we draw gift cards for them too. So yeah, very, very similar. I can tell you, it's like something that's so little and people love it. I mean, it's just so meaningful. So I can imagine like getting on this all company call for 15 minutes and shouting out the names to like everyone in the company must be huge. I mean, because you guys have a pretty substantial company. Like, we're not talking like 40 or 50 people. You guys are a pretty large group at this point.
Yeah, just over 300 team members.
Yeah.
Just shy of 10,000 apartment homes. So
Yeah.
46 communities. Yep. So,
Yeah. Oh,
and
okay.
my
Well,
goal would be to have to say every single name for every single KPI. I mean, that would be
yes.
my ultimate best day, because that means that we're giving them those tools that they need,
I love
whether
it.
that's the training or whether that's our systems and processes. And they're clicking and they're in a career that is working for them because they're hitting those metrics. And you got to be engaged to hit some of our metrics. They're not all easy to hit. So yeah, that's my goal.
I love that so much, Angie. And I feel like that ties so closely back to what you were saying about yourself and early on, when you were talking about like cleaning the units and how like, I don't know. I know you guys are a fan of like personality tests and like Myers-Briggs, like where you sit. But have you ever done the Strengths Finder?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that responsibility is one of your top strengths.
It wasn't in my top 3.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't. Now I'm curious. The book is, and the results are sitting over there. I'll have to let you know after exactly where I sat with it. But I also took Strength Finders. Gosh, it was at least 15 years ago. So it might have.
Oh, wow. Changed. Yeah.
It might have changed. I was still being in Chicago then. So yeah, it might have. Now you have me wondering. I'll have to pull that book back out. So I'll let you know.
Where it was coming from was like the way that you were saying. So like, which I really want to get into this topic with you too, of like this whole like we can't do everything as leaders and why it's bad. I do want to get into that. But before we do, like the way that you were describing like your responsibility for like making sure that the unit was as clean as you would want it for the renter and for the family that's moving into that unit. And how like you just said that like the perfect world for you is when you can list off everyone's name on a KPI, because that means you've given them the tools. Not that they were using the tools correctly or that like they were, but that you've given them the tools, that you have make sure that you've helped make sure that it's the right people on the team and that you're giving them the opportunity. That's putting a lot of onus on you and not as much on them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a good leader, when publicly, when things aren't going well, I think the leader puts it on their shoulders. I think that when a team member, and I'm talking more global, I guess, when most team members are achieving the results that need to be achieved, then my bias is we probably have the right systems in place. We probably have the right training tools in place. And we've matched up, at least in the moment, their abilities with the asks. Mm-hmm. And then the small percent that's not meeting it is probably the wrong person in the seat, right? Or right person, wrong seat, or wrong person, wrong seat, right? But when most of the team isn't achieving a metric, then I think I, as the leader, need to take that responsibility publicly and say, we've got metric X to hit. If at least half of the team is not hitting it, and I firmly believe, I set this expectation, which means it's achievable, because otherwise, why would I set my entire team up to fail?
Yeah.
And when most are failing, and I think they should have been able to succeed, then I do think it's on the leader. I think that it stops with me. Now, does it mean I fix it? No, but it means I come to the leaders on the team and say, look, we have this expectation of every research completed 30 days in advance of when it's due, which is one of our expectations. Not the day it's due, but 30 days in advance of that research, 100% of everything needs to be done. No excuses. It's always done. Well, if 95% of our team hits it, I think we've given them the tools they need. But when we drop below that 95, or we drop below 90, which is actually a conversation I just had with my compliance director just before you and I got on this conversation, was why are the numbers starting to slip? And if it's the same people who achieved it before and aren't achieving it today, what's changed? And I think as leaders, that's where I put that responsibility on. Do I go and do those research? No. Yeah. Do I tell the regionals to go and do those research? No. We've got to figure out what roadblocks we need to remove. And then if they're removed, then it's a people problem, which in our industry, a lot of times it is. But that's what I meant by that. That's what I meant by that statement. So.
Yeah, I think that's so well articulated and honestly, like such a great learning opportunity for new leaders or those who are wanting to become leaders. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it should always start. Well, first of all, like any problem that you're ever having with hitting your goals or your objectives as a company should always start with questions, period. Like always questions. And I think you're totally right. Like the first question is like, how many people aren't meeting this goal? And then like the next question, like, well, what tools are we giving them to meet the goal or not to meet the goal? And like, how are those tools working and how are we training them and those sorts of things? And like, how are the different ways we can fix it? And I think that's just so well said. So for anyone who's like starting their career in leadership or finding themselves at like a growth stage in their leadership career, I think that was such incredible advice that I would personally listen to again. But I do think that, speaking of like leadership and things that you learned as being a leader, you and I have talked about this a little bit. And I think for me, responsibility was actually my top 3 strengths finder. But it's also like, as much as that is a strength for me, I've also found it's a big weakness of mine too. And it can cause a lot of problems as well for me. And one of the things that, you said, like, sometimes we fall into this trap of like, if I can do it, then I do it. But that's not necessarily what's always best for me. But forget me for a second. It's definitely not what's always best for the company.
Yeah. I started out by talking about how I was a leasing agent, right? And I've cleaned apartments and I've held a lot of roles in the multifamily industry. And I love checking things off my to-do list. I love it. Like I still make a to-do list on the weekends. And if I have 8 loads of laundry to do, I have 8 circles and I love coloring that circle in as each one gets all the way through. Like and yes, it's still paper. There's something to be said about handwriting something once in a while. But I still love that. And I think if I'm doing it with the right purpose, there's occasions when it's okay for me to sit in the weeds and to answer that phone or to see how our prospect workflow is going or to try to pull down an application and see what's our manager experiencing, who's new, because we know turnover is high. So there's always somebody new. And it's good to live in that for a couple minutes, but I can't live in the weeds, even if, and this is a growth opportunity for me that I navigate through a lot, and I ask the managing partner, Michael, to hold me accountable to a lot, is when I'm willing to sit back in that role that somebody else should be holding, hold me accountable to it. Because when I'm living in the manager's role, or if I'm living in the to-do role, I can't live in the true leadership role and be present for all 300 team members. And that's not fair to the 299 others that are being left behind because I'm sitting in a property processing files. There's a greater purpose to it that's different if it's short-lived. But I struggle with that because I will gladly do it in the evenings and on the weekend. And that's not the solution. Right? It's not good for my family. It's not good for even my strategic thinking because you've got to unwind. And you've got to give your mind minutes to think outside of when we're in the office, because we all know what it's like when we're in the office. So, yeah, I struggle. I'll just be honest. I struggle with that every day. I have to remind myself every day what my role is and what I'm responsible for. And so now I ask the question differently when I know that we're going to have a regional or RVP opening, or I know that we're going to have a lease up get added. The question I ask is, how can I show up for you differently than I am right now? So during my one-on-one with one of my RVPs, I asked that exact question to her today. I said, I know you don't want me to come and sit at your community and be an RVP. However, I also know that what's being added to your plate in the next 2 weeks, I want you to succeed at. So how do you need me to show up differently? And then I always obviously give them plenty of opportunity. Like I said, you don't have to answer that now, right? I didn't prep you for the weekly with this question. So just let me know in the next couple of days. Now, I guarantee she's not going to say to me, Angie, I need you to show up and process applications for me. But she might ask me to show up in a different way from a bigger picture perspective on a short term, or do a site visit that actually is really good for me to get out and thank the teams and do those site visits. And that takes, that just this one time off of her plate. But I'm trying to ask those questions differently in the role that I'm in today.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have so many things I want to ask you and go from this. Oh, okay. First, I actually want to share something personal that I've discovered over the past year or so. So, because I'm taking so much advice from you right now, and that whole asking the question differently, I think is so incredibly valuable. And so I've made a note to myself on that one. Something that's worked well for me over the past year or so has been to, right, because these disruptions are going to happen. You're going to lose a community manager on site, and you and I shouldn't, although we have in the past, I know I personally have gone and sat on site to help my regional out or to do whatever. Like my regional has like a site visit on another property with an owner of that property. And so she can't be at this property that day. So I go sit out there for 4 hours in the morning to make sure that there's leadership coverage there while we're still trying to find that next person. But the thing that I feel like I've learned over the past year is that the most advantageous thing to me is if the people who I coach and mentor, if I make sure that they have a right hand. So like I ask my team all the time, like there's like 6 people who report up to me. To be clear though, I personally believe that I work for them more than they work for me. That's the way that I see the world. But for those people who report up to me, one of my questions on our one-on-ones is always like, who's your right hand right now? Like if you had to step away for a month, if you weren't available, or if something detrimental happened on your team and you needed someone to step in and help you with an emergency, who is your right hand? And like making sure they always have someone, because if they have that someone, then that someone can help them with all those emergency tactical things. And that person is probably better suited to it for me than I am anyway. And then it helps stop that situation that I also get into all the time, where I find myself doing work that is satisfying, check off the box work that is not really helping us, like from a company perspective, make sure that we are like successful and providing value to my whole team.
I am going to borrow that from you, and I'm going to start asking that question. What I need to be prepared for is if they say they don't have one.
Yeah.
And then what investment does that leader believe needs to be made in order for them to have that right hand? So
yeah, it's such an interesting question, I think, to ask, because I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't really be able to stack rank your team. Like you should, like everyone on your team should be so great that you're like, they may be different at different things, but like if you can be like, oh, this person's so much better than this person, then it's like, okay, well then let's get rid of that person and get a person who's up there. Yeah. Like I don't want you stack ranking your team, but I do think that the value of having a right hand, of like having that person who's there for you, can be so clutch. And I feel like, like you and I have them, like I have a feeling I know who at least one of yours is. But like, we have them, but I don't think that it's something that we generally reinforce to like our younger or even newer levels of leadership. But I think that it can be so beneficial to them if they do. So anyway, I love that. So thanks for indulging me. I will also tell you that I've been reading this book that was recommended to me by my right hand, actually. And I looked it up because I didn't want to butcher the title. It's called Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday, who is like he writes a lot about stoicism. He's a stoic himself. And anyway, it's a phenomenal book, but a few of the passages have like, and it's so cute because it's like, if you listen to books, it's like an Audible that I have loved, but it's like each chapter is only like 5 to 10 minutes. And it's just like little snippets of wisdom. And like, so you could take one or not take one anyway, but it's really cute and really impactful also. Not to belittle it, but one of them was talking about how like the first thing that you get up and do in the morning should be the thing that is going to add value, not the thing that like checks the boxes. Like when you're spending that like valuable, like first morning fresh brain energy, it should be on the thing that is like magical, that's creating value. And I know that I personally struggle with this so heavily. Like when I first get in the morning, I want to like start to check off the things that like are necessary, not the things that are creative and innovative. And I'm trying really slowly but surely, I'm trying to shift that mindset. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I wrote down the book. I love reading, so I'll have to.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Have to read that one next. So I do my best thinking in the mornings, and I connect dots the best. I see the most clearly in the morning. So my before I get to the office routine might shock you, but it's pretty disciplined.
Good for you.
There's 3 things I do every morning. One of them, it's not the 20-20-20 rule, but I do listen to a podcast or read a little bit every morning. I exercise. That looks different every morning. I mean, sometimes it's just this 7-minute type of class because that's all I have, but it's never less than 7 minutes. Sometimes it's a lot longer, especially in the summer when the days are pretty. And then I'm a Christian, so I spend time in scripture. There's a leadership Bible that I enjoy, just reflecting back on the day and how I should have led differently or showed up differently for different team members. And sometimes it's just this Bible app that I use. But so my personal morning routine is pretty disciplined. I attempt, and I'm making me tell myself a lot on this podcast. I do try to keep my first 2 hours of my day blocked out. Like, however, I start early. I'm a morning person, so by the end of my second hour, some people are just getting into the office, which helps.
Yeah, it does help.
However, if a team member tells me they're a morning person and they want their one-on-one early, I will sacrifice my time. So I have one of my one-on-ones that starts at 7:30 in the morning. Every single week. So I'm telling on myself, I will not change that. It's her best time to think too. And I think it's important to be there for our leaders at the times they need us to. But that's how I block out my mornings. Like I said, it helps that we don't have an expectation for team members to show up before 9 a.m. And I'm definitely at my desk at 7 every morning, usually before. Yeah. So it helps if we all started at 7 in the morning. I'm not sure I could be so disciplined. Yeah. And I'm East Coast time, so that helps. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, for the Central Time Zone people. So.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I feel like you've given me a little bit of renewed energy to continue this battle that I'm waging with myself, to like use those 2 hours to accomplish higher level tasks rather than just the things that I think, the important but not urgent, right? If we're talking about the quadrants, right? Trying to do that. So you've given me a little bit of renewed energy there. So I really appreciate that. So thank you for sharing and/or telling on yourself. Gosh,
no, I've told it myself a few times in this hour. That's okay. That's me.
I love it. It's been so, honestly, we're very similar humans in that way. But which is ironic because the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, the next question I have for you comes from the statement that you made about Michael and asking someone, him specifically, but still just the concept of asking someone to hold you accountable. The vulnerability in that and like the honesty and sense of self-awareness to ask your boss to hold you accountable. I think it's amazing. My quote boss, the chair of my board, Kerri Rosenblum, I use the quote boss because I think it honestly, at this level and at the level of team members reporting to me, and I'm sure at you and Michael's level, it feels more like a partnership than it does like a boss. So I don't love that word. But like partnering with someone at this level, that still takes a lot of vulnerability to like share that sort of self-awareness of yourself and ask for that sort of help. But I think it's amazing. So I just want to ask, like, have you always been that way? Is it something that is that just part of your relationship with Michael? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, I was this way before Michael too. I probably have to give that one to my parents. Just, we always can be better. Now I've got to watch this,
Yes.
right? Because it goes back to something we talked about earlier of our team at Pivotal was like, look, you're finding the 1% that we need to improve, like praise us a little more. So I got to watch it, because if I'm always looking for improvement in myself, then I'm probably the lens backpack I wear, whatever we want to call it, I'm going to do that to others too. But I'm a firm believer that I can always be better than I am. So, and I want to show up better for our team. I want to be a better spouse. I want to be a better mom. I want to be a better friend. So, and obviously it chokes me up a little bit if we're talking about it. For whatever reason, I'm getting all choked up. What's not always been easy is to accept what I'm asking for. But I had a phenomenal leader about 10 years ago who, he did a great job. His name was Todd Sears, and he did a great job of like framing my improvements in a way that the vulnerability hurt a lot. Like some days I would come home from work and sometimes I would cry because I'm like, man, I thought my presentation was so much better. But at the end of the day, he made me so much better, because he stretched me in ways that I never thought I could be stretched when it comes to presentations and things. So I do think it's tough in that, and the word boss is probably the wrong word. I'm in my 50s. To us, it's not a negative word. I could understand maybe somebody before, but a supervisor or a leader is probably the better term today. But I think when, like, Michael and Brian gave me the opportunity to lead the property management team of their organization, and if they have that belief that I could do it, I owe it to them to ask, hold me accountable. How can I lead better? Doesn't mean that when he tells me something that he sees, it's easy for me to hear, but I need to hear it. And when I know it's not easy for me to hear, it reminds me what it's like for my team, whether they ask for the solicitation or feedback or not. It probably isn't easy for them to hear either. So I think I have to stay vulnerable to be a better leader. But yeah, I would probably track it back to most of my life, but definitely the last 10-ish years the most. So.
Yeah, it's so funny. I agree with you. You and I are very similar humans, because I would agree. I feel like I've always been that way. Not that I've always been happy with what I heard or that I didn't fight against it, but I was always like seeking, just as a human, I seek criticism more than I do compliments, but that doesn't mean that I always handle the criticism super well, but I sought it. But I had that same experience, and honestly, that's still the chair of my board, and I've talked about him a lot on the podcast. Honestly, like Kerri Rosenblum's still like my leader in so many ways, my true partner. He's also my contrarian, but like he pushed me outside of my comfort zone so many times. And like you, like I would do something and I'd be like, oh, this spreadsheet, because I've started as an accountant with him. I was like, oh, this spreadsheet is beautiful, and I would take it into his office and he would tear it apart, and I was like, oh my god, and I'd go home and cry. Like I thought it was so good. But like. He was always trying to get even if it was a 97% spreadsheet, like he wanted it at 99, like as close as you could possibly get. And I think that finding that type of if you have the opportunity to work with that type of person, leaning into it, and like, no matter how hard it is, getting all the value that you can out of that, it's definitely changed who I am drastically as a human for the better.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story. Oh my gosh, Angie, I cannot believe we've already been doing this for almost 50. We're a little over 50 minutes. I could talk to you literally all day. I'm like holding myself back because I have to respect you and your time and all the other important things you have going on. But like, gosh, okay. So I'm trying to decide, I'm sorry, I'm going to make this podcast a little awkward. I can either ask you the last two questions that I ask everybody, which are, share a story and share a book recommendation, or I have one more question for you about centralization, but I'm taking advantage of your time right now. So I'm going to ask you where you want to go, how much time you have and what you want to do.
I have plenty of time. I have no more meetings today, so I am good. So you lead it.
Okay. All right. For my listeners, for anyone listening to this podcast, I apologize for the awkwardness of this. It's just that I could talk to Angie all day, but I'm going to make this podcast so long. Okay. So, centralization, I think it's still like a concept that's being talked about so much around the industry. And there are some groups who are swearing up and down that they're, like saving so much money and eliminating site positions. And then there are other groups who are like, that's absolute BS. And even with AI and centralization, we're not saving any money. And then there's, of course, like different methodologies and like structures around centralization. And so, but yet I keep coming back to this place of like how affordable housing does it. And you and I have had a great conversation around this where I'm really impressed with like how you're thinking about centralization in a way that I haven't heard communicated by any other leaders. And so I really like it. And so I do want to ask you, how do you think about centralization in affordable housing?
So what I think, I'll start with what I think it's not, and then what I think it is. What I don't think centralization in affordable housing should be intended to do, assuming, I got to make an assumption statement, assuming you're already running lean, because most of us run very lean in affordable housing, is to trim staff, employee hours, payroll per unit, whatever we want to call it, to cut it. I don't think that is what centralization should do in affordable housing. I think that anything that is relationship focused needs to remain, and centralization should take the admin heavy, complicated processes off of the on-site team so that the on-site team can focus on that resident walking in the door, that they can focus on the prospect that's coming in, those relationships that build a community. And I think that's what our residents long for in affordable housing. And it doesn't mean they're going to have an hour-long conversation with somebody, that doesn't have anybody stopping by. I'm not saying that our community managers begin to fill that role, because it's not fair to ask them to fill that role, for one. And it just won't work from a business model. But to centralize those admin steps that can be centralized, that has no relational value whatsoever, those kind of repetitive tasks that are going to come down and don't require the expertise of that manager.
Yeah, I think that is, so I agree with you completely that most of the time the residents are like looking for that connection, and that's where they want to spend the space. And that's the most valuable, I think, task that our on-site team members can have, to put it that way, is to like build those relationships, be there for those conversations, and not do those mundane administrative tasks. I would also argue that in so many instances, those specific like repetitive type reoccurring tasks are also the ones that we're trying to create this world in which our on-site teams are essentially like CEOs, where they're capable of like, but yet like not just the CEO of every division, but like not the CEO who has to understand every division, but also the individual contributor who actually has to do every single division. So it's like, if you put them in that role, then all of a sudden they have to be like legal for fair housing perspective. They have to be HR and how they manage their team and instruct them and deal with like, if their team members are late, they have to be collections, they have to be sales, they have to be facilities, they have to be all these different things. And that's almost impossible to ask of anyone. Like, quite frankly, I am a CEO and you still can't ask me to do all those things. It's why I have team members who do those things. And so the ask is really quite quite incredible. And so if we can take some of those things away, it also like allows them to truly just focus and be great at what it is that they're doing. So what sort of things are you guys doing at Pivotal that is like, or what sort of things are you experimenting with that you're taking away from the teams?
So we're like a lot of other affordable housing, we are experimenting with centralized leasing roles, but those that are tech heavy. So not the communities that are still paper that you pull down, but those communities that have already converted over to utilizing technology for research and renewals, and have that conversation start with the tour and the yes, I'd love to apply. And then it's somebody that is not interrupted all day long, that's just sitting at a desk to process those files while the site team still has the relational conversations. That success, though, has been hit or miss. When we have an engaged community manager on site, it's a success. When we're attempting to do it without that engagement on site, it's not as successful.
That's interesting.
So yeah, it's because I think relationships matter in affordable housing. I mean, when we think about especially the income level of our team members, and they're going to be, sometimes it's 50% of their monthly income is going to their rent. I mean, this is a big expense, and it's their home, and especially for our senior communities, I mean, they pay rent above all other costs, right? You hear it over and over again. The importance of keeping a roof on a head for a senior, for somebody 62 and older, it's prioritized still. They'll give up their medicines. They'll not eat, like the stories that you hear. So the relationships matter because that's a big expense. So I think that's one reason why. I also think that while HOPMA has helped make things a little easier for states that have fully adopted HOPMA, there's still a lot of complicated paperwork that's still required. Some things will show up on a pay stub that creates additional questions. And when you're talking to somebody that you've never met and they're asking for 6 months of a bank statement or something, like who is this person on the other end? But when they can walk in the office and say, so-and-so's calling me, who is this person? And you've told them, but they've forgotten, right? Which is understandable because they've got a lot going on. I think that's the other reason why I'm not sure in affordable housing we can ever fully take the human out. Centralizing things like state reporting or uploading the files to the agency websites or completing the investor requested documents, and even centralizing that to the point that it is not on our regionals or our RVPs anymore. I think those centralizations are extremely successful. We have leaders that lead with the yes. So just last week, I asked an RVP what she was doing, and she showed me this extremely long document. And I said, and why are you doing this 15-page document? Well, because we lead with the yes. Yes, you know, and I'm like, well, that's not, you don't do that anymore. So kick that back to we are one team with many functions. So kick that back to the other function on the team that is supposed to be doing it, because you as an RVP should not be doing it. Neither should the regional, because you've got to be present. So that centralization has worked really, really well. Also, and then centralizing anything that has to do with Section 8 payments, changes, interims, inspection, all that kind of stuff. That centralization, that has worked extremely well. It's complicated. So centralizing that so one person has to know it with two people that are her backups has helped a lot also.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that the way that you're looking at it is, and not just looking at it, but the way that you've like trialed it, and so like the data you have around it and understanding like where it is and isn't working, I think is really insightful and really unique. And I do agree. I think that, to your point, like trying to take more humans out of the equation in affordable housing when we're already running so lean that arguably, like if there is a reason why if we're not hitting our KPIs or things aren't getting done well, it's probably because we're running so lean at a lot of properties these days, honestly. And so like to think about even getting leaner is almost impossible. But if you can find ways to strategically accomplish a lot more with a lot less through centralization, not less humans, but like less time, that it takes so much less time to complete X, Y, and Z because you have one person and that's all they do. And they just do it over and over and over again. And they found ways to streamline it, to use AI or tech to make it faster, those sorts of things. Then I think you can create some real success. So anyway, I love the way you're thinking about it.
Thank you.
Gosh, Angie, I could chat with you all day, but I'm going to try to be respectful. And so and I know that our listeners would love to hear the answers to these last two questions from you. So I'll start with the first one. Would you mind to share a story with us from your time in multifamily?
So I'm going to share one when I was a community manager. It was shortly after I learned about affordable housing. And I wasn't supposed to be at that property that day, but I was helping somebody out. I like to raise my hand and say yes. And the family came in, and I did not know HUD. I knew LIHTC, but I did not know the HUD world. And her name had been called for next on the wait list, but she had to get in right away. So she tells the story of how she traveled a couple hours and how she got friends to help get her here. And she was a single mom. And she was so excited because this particular community had a school right behind it and her kids could be in that school. And she had been on this wait list for a really long time. She'd just been out of town visiting somebody. So I made some phone calls because I'd never done a HUD application, and it was all paper. This was a long time ago, so the technology side wasn't there. But they showed me where I'd go to print these papers out, and HUD applications are different, right? You've got deductions that we don't have on the tax credit side and whatever. This sweet lady spent almost 8 hours with her 2 kids in my office while I tried to get all this paperwork done, which gives me even more respect for community managers. Think about a manager starting out, right? Like, but we were trying to get her moved in really quickly. So she eventually gets it all done. She didn't have her social security card, she didn't have birth certificate. So in these 8 hours, she's also like, her friend is also driving her places to try to get things and whatever. So we finally, at the end of the day, get it all. And I'm able to scan it all up to where it needs to go for approval because I didn't have to do that. That was centralized somewhere else. And she gets approved and the manager is still not there. So I go back to the property a couple days later to move her in. And at this point, I couldn't show them the apartment before. So I show them the apartment, and her 8-year-old boy, I will never forget him. He walks into this living room and he looks at the living room and he's like, wow, this is a big living room. And his mom said, well, go there. That's your bedroom. And he got the biggest eyes and he said, I'm going to have a bedroom. Yeah, he was 8 years old. This is why you got to get affordable housing. He was 8 years old and never had his own bedroom. So I don't know if they're still living there. I should probably connect with the company I used to work with and see if that family is still there, because that's what affordable housing does that no other industry can do. Right.
Yeah.
So I thought about sharing like a leadership story, and I was like, you know what? Like, this story still brings tears to my eyes because he's the one I heard, but how many other kids have that same story? How many keys get given out in lease ups with this new construction and affordable housing? And it's the first opportunity because there's finally housing in their city. Like, yeah. So that's probably, I have a lot of fun stories, but that's in good stories and a lot of career development stories. But that one I think hits at the heart of why we're in affordable housing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Angie. And it's moving, very, very moving, very meaningful. So, gosh, it also just like helps bring you back to like what's important in life and how lucky we all are and what problems we really do and don't have. So thank you for sharing that. Well, now I'm excited to ask you this next question because I know that you're also an avid reader, and I usually use these moments to add to my reading wish list. So, Angie, is there a book that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
So I'm an overachiever, so I'm going to recommend two for two different
Let's
reasons.
go. I'm so excited.
Okay. So I even have copies on of music. So Everyone
Yay.
Deserves a Great Manager.
Okay.
By Scott Miller. And here's for new managers starting out, it is a book that's broken up into short little chapters that you can immediately apply. There's action items in the end of it. And while the word, I thought maybe not, because then today the word manager gets a bad rap, but like it's the manager that, I like talking metaphors, that kind of keeps the train on the track, right? Like the leader is going to cast that vision of where it's going to go. But if you don't have a really good manager, it's not going to move. So I used to, I don't anymore, but I might start again. I used to carry this book with me in every site visit I went on. I would ask the manager if they wanted a copy. And I quit doing that 2 years ago. I didn't keep doing that when I went to Pivotal, but I still always talk about this book. So I just might buy myself a case and put it in my suitcase and start that again. Because it's a quick read. I think there's nuggets of info that are really good for managers starting out.
Oh, I love that so much. I might go ahead and read that one. I tell people all the time, I think that that managers, leaders, and partners are so incredibly valuable, and they just bring very different skill sets. And like, I'm not a very good manager. I think I'm a good leader, but I think I'm a great partner. And I think that I do need to work, honestly, on being a better manager and a better leader. And I would say a manager is probably my worst quality. And I do think that there are times where my team needs it, where it is needed. You do need to be a good manager from time to time, and certain roles need to be fantastic managers. Like that is what they need to do. So I agree. I hate that word has gotten like the short end of the stick, because I think it's an incredibly valuable skill to have, and a necessary component of any business. So that's an awesome recommendation. I love that.
But the one that really made me rethink meetings, I've been structured in my meetings with having agendas and starting on time and prep work well in advance. I've been pretty disciplined about that. But the book, The Art of Gathering.
Ooh. Okay.
Priya Parker. This book was recommended to me three-ish years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, when I was responsible for heading up a leadership seminar for a group of leaders for 3 days. And I asked for a save the date to be put on their calendar well in advance, so everyone knew and wouldn't plan vacations. And my leader at the time asked me if I'd ever read this book, and I said no. So I got it, and she said, well, I'm going to hold off on adding a save the date. I want you to read this book and then come back and tell me if you still want me to put the save the date on. And it is all about, like, it has changed the way, even like I will sometimes do family things, like to be completely intentional about the way every invite is worded, the teaser leading up to the actual meeting, even the very first sentence in a meeting. It talks about it and why starting the meeting with please silence your cell phones, and this is hop up whenever you need, we're all adults to go to the bathroom. Like that's the absolute worst way you could ever start a conference. And this meeting talks about the why behind that, or this book does. It is, yeah, I've referred this book to a lot.
Oh my God, I'm buying it. We're done. We'll be reading that.
How We Meet and Why It Matters is her tagline under The Art of Gathering. But yeah, it's a really good book. So great books for two different reasons.
Such a great recommendation, Angie. I am so here for that one. I think I'm such an introvert that like when I do spend time with others, whether it's professionally or personally, like in group settings, when I spend time with others, I feel like I personally have to be intentional with like how I conduct myself, and because especially when there's too much of it in a day, because I shy away from it as an introvert. So I think learning how to like maximize that time personally and professionally would be insanely valuable. So thank you for sharing that. I'm excited.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm excited to hear your little nuggets that you got from it too. That'll be fun.
Good. Well, we'll have to. I may also have to pester you for another podcast in the next 6 to 9 months, because I feel like I have so many things that I could have additionally asked you that I have not covered in the past hour and 15 minutes that I've stolen from you.
I'm going to have to improve on a lot of things so I don't tell on myself so much. I got 6 months to develop.
I love it. I love it, Angie. I cannot thank you enough for taking this time with me. This was honestly such an enjoyable conversation. I feel so honored and so appreciative. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I have a book to read too, so I'm going to read your recommended book and I'll let you know.
It's a great one.
Thank you, Kerri.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Multifamily Grit. I hope you enjoyed hearing Angie Hug's incredible journey and the wisdom she shared throughout our conversation. From the power of affordable housing to leading with purpose, investing in people, and creating opportunities for growth, Angie reminded us that the greatest impact we can make is through service, relationships, and helping others build a place they can truly call home. We also want to give one more shout out to Fortress, our episode sponsor. Fortress is committed to revolutionizing affordable property management with smarter, more efficient solutions that keep communities thriving. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a colleague who would benefit from Angie's insights on leadership, accountability, affordable housing, and building teams that make a lasting difference. Until next time, stay gritty, stay passionate, and we'll see you back here soon.